Okay, I am back for science. We're going to do science, but I do want to show you my Sajan pear. I did a little bit more to it. I actually added a little red to the bottom and I messed it up just a little bit, and I added a little red right over there. And I added more highlighting on the edge here because theirs had highlighting on the edge. And I added some more white there. And that's how mine turned out. I think that I could go back and add a little more to the leaf. But I think I'm going to call it done. I think it's pretty good. For a non-artist person, I was proud of it. So if you want to send me, I really want you to send me a picture of yours when you get all done with it. It might take a day or two to complete it. You might let different parts dry and then go back and layer on it. So just send me a picture of it. I can't wait to see it. I'm sure you did a great job. Today I want to talk about the project we're going to do in science. And if you are a boy and you are okay with doing this, I want you to collect bugs. And I think we talked about it some yesterday. The way you do it is you catch the bugs and you have to let them die. They get very hard and brittle, and so if you want to soften them up a little so you can pose them, you layer them. You put a layer of 2 or 3 layers of paper towel in the bottom of a plastic box, a layer of big hard bugs, and then another 2 or 3 layers of wet paper towels. They don't need to be dripping. No dripping, you'll cause rot and it'll stink. And then you put a little bit lighter weight bugs, and then 2 or 3 layers of wet paper towels, and the lightest weight bugs you have on top. Put a lid on it and let it sit for, it said 2 to 3 days, but I think probably 1 day is going to be enough. And then you take them out and you'll need a big cardboard, big enough to hold all of your bugs with spacing in between it. And you can pose them. If their legs are able to move, they're ready. So if you want to pose them, you can, and you just pin them on the board. The first pin you stick into the thorax, you just stick the pin right through it, and then you pose the legs, stretch them out. If you want to lift up the wings, you can, and then you have to pin the legs down until they dry again. And then once they are dry, then you take the leg pins out, but you leave the pin in the thorax because that's what's holding it to the cardboard. If you don't want to pose them, then you can just put the pin into the thorax. Now, you need to look up on Google and find out what kind of bugs you've got as close as you can, and you need to write it down with a black marker or whatever color marker you want, depending on what color board you have. You can make the board pretty fancy, or you can just do plain cardboard. It's up to you. I've seen people do display projects and they have a nice border on there and they'll paint the back of it blue or some kind of beautiful color, and then they'll do their project. So it just depends on how you want it to look. And if you want it to look rugged, you could even do camouflage duct tape. You could do that for the border of it, and you could do it in a dark green or a army looking green, or you could do gray. You can get really creative with it, make it look like you. And so if you're not afraid to touch bugs, and this afternoon I'm going to see if I can go out and look for some real bugs and see if I can. Now, if you don't want to touch bugs, what you can do is like this. You can go online, you can look up whatever kind of bug you want. I want you to have at least 6. If you can't find 6 different kinds of bugs, you can include some pictures too. Alright, so you can look up ladybug. I looked up June bug. I looked up, what is this? Do you see it? Let me get it closer to the camera. It's a stick bug. It's a pretty big one. And I just looked up some bugs that I thought were beautiful, that I admire. I put the name under them so you can type it on there, or you can write it with a marker. You can do it on a piece of paper. You can do it on a poster board. It's up to you, but I want 6 bugs on it. I want them to be named, labeled. If it's a ladybug, put ladybug. If it's a dragonfly, like I did, I just wrote dragonfly. Only one of mine had a special name. And I thought this one was interesting because it's from Australia. And that is the place that we're studying right now. And it is a blue band egg fly. butterfly, but that's the name of it, blue band egg fly from Australia. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Bugs are really beautiful. I really don't care to touch them much, but they are very beautiful. All right, let's see if we can, I want that done. What is today? Today is Tuesday. Wednesday is when I'll be airing this video though. So let's see if you can have that done by the end of next week. I'll give you a few days to work on that. Okay, so let's see if we can review what we've learned. We've learned that bugs have, to be a bug, you have to have certain parts. You have to have 2 antennae. You have to have how many legs? 6 legs. Where do the legs come out of? Yeah, you know it. Thorax. And you have to have how many body parts? 3 body parts. You have a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. And all of your legs come out of your thorax. Then yesterday we studied a really big word. It starts with M. Can you name it? Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is what? Metamorphosis is the changing from a baby bug to an adult bug. That's all it is. It's the changing, all the stages they go through. Some go through a complete metamorphosis, like a butterfly. It has a caterpillar, then it turns to a cocoon, and then it grows into an adult and it flies away. And some are just born as miniature adults and they shed their what? Exoskeleton, their outer skeleton, as they grow, because it has to stretch, and I guess the exoskeleton is not that stretchy. So today you are going to need your vocabulary sheet. You're going to need your insect vocabulary book. You are going to need your big book about insects. You are going to need some markers, and you're going to need maybe an eraser and a pencil. And that's all you should need for today. So if you need to pause the video and get that together, then do so now. And I am going to read to you. It is in the big book, and we read Metamorphosis yesterday. And so today we are going to read about communication. And I said I had a story for you, and I do. But we'll read the communication book first, and then I'll tell you the story. All right, so at the top it says insects have many ways to communicate, including sound, sight, and smell. Oh, I didn't know they were this smart. Not all insects communicate in the same way. Grasshoppers rub their back legs together to create sound vibrations. Fireflies, also called lightning bugs, communicate by creating a flashing light with their abdomens. Ants will create a scent trail using pheromones to lead other ants to food. Honeybees communicate through dance. They do a special dance called the waggle dance to communicate to other bees where flowers are. Now look, do you think they do the same dance for every time they find a flower? I'm guessing no, because they don't want to go to the same flower every time. But if you notice, the bee is turned all kind of different ways. How in the world does that tell another bee where to go? I do not know, but I know we have an amazing designer as our creator, and he just came up with the neatest ideas, and he came up with a bee dance for bees to tell each other how to find their food. So let's review. How do grasshoppers do it? You need to go back and look in your book. You can. They rub their back legs together to create sound vibrations. How do fireflies do it? Using their flashing light. How do ants do it? They use pheromones, which is a hormone that they have that is scented, and other ants can follow it to the food. And honeybees do a waggle dance. Waggle dance. All right. The story I have for you is, it was in one of my readers, and it was maybe a 3rd or 4th grade reader, and this guy was doing experiments on how could ants get to food. So he put a jar of honey or jam in the middle of, I think it was like on a stool, and I think he put water around it so that they couldn't get to it. And I think I can't remember, but I think he hung a string on the ceiling, and it didn't go all the way to the jar, but it went most of the way to the jar. And the ants figured out even though they couldn't get to the jelly, somehow they figured out that there was jelly there, and they built a bridge. They climbed down the string, and they built an ant bridge to the jelly. And they got that jelly, and they climbed back up the string onto the ceiling and back down to the floor. Ants are really amazing. If you put out, you don't want ants in the house, but if you put out things outside, like a piece of bread, a small piece of bread, or a piece of bread soaked with honey, or you put a little cookie, or you put a dead bug, you can just put it on the corner of your porch, and it will not be long, and you will see ants all over it. And how did they know it was there? Because, I mean, there were no ants on your porch before, and all of a sudden it's covered with ants. And so they have ways to communicate, and it's pretty interesting. So we're going to get our insect book out, and we are going to go to camouflage. And my markers are bleeding into my other pages, so I hope your markers are not doing that. So one thing you could do is lift up the page you're fixing to color on, put another piece of paper or a board under it, which is what I'm going to do today. So I have this like this. So if it colors, it's just going to go through to this board. See? That way it won't go through to the other books. Alright, so what we're going to do is, wait a minute, this says camouflage. We have not done camouflage yet. So, I think we don't have to do a definition today. Wait just a minute, let me see. We've got camouflage and mimicry. And this was communication, defense. So I know mimicry is on tomorrow, and I think camouflage is on tomorrow. So actually, we don't even have a definition today. So work on your project. It may take you a little while to download. What you can do is just look at the images on Google, type your ladybug, and then go to images. And you may have to have Mom's help if you don't know how to move it to a blank sheet of paper. You just hit copy. And then when you get on the blank sheet of paper, you hit paste, and then you can cut them out and put them on a little board or on a new piece of paper and label them. So that should be interesting, and I can't wait to see that. The next thing we're going to do is geography, and that'll wrap it up for today. So science was kind of short, but that's okay, and I will see y'all in a minute.